Always thought you were in the way, you know. Actually, you never really belonged here in the first place. In front of everyone, she brazenly declared I was a nuisance. Her gaze was as cold and sharp as the first time we met. And her usual malicious smirk. Emma went on further. Unaware this was my family's ancestral home, and despite being my husband's child from another marriage who came to our home for her childbirth. Your room will be mine. Emma's eyes were dead serious. Then, my husband chimed in alongside her. Just like Emma said. You should go back to your parents' house. I had put up with so much until now. Yet, this treatment was just too much. Amidst the growing excitement around me, I was the only one calmly thinking about what comes next. It's over with you all. And now, it's your turn to suffer. The uproar from Emma and the others lasted till late into the night. But not a single soul cared about my presence. My name is Sarah. A 47-year-old housewife, dreaming of a happier future from now on. I've been married to Mark for 10 years, it's been a ride, but we've somehow made it through. I met Mark 2 years before we got married. Engrossed in my career, marriage was the last thing on my mind, but as I approached my mid-30s, I began feeling uncertain about the future. That's when a female colleague introduced me to a man. That man was Mark. Mark was kind and gentlemanly, always putting me first above all else. It was natural to be drawn to Mark, who seemed like he came from a different world compared to the men I had dated in the past. 6 months after meeting, we started dating. Finally becoming a couple, every day since was filled with happiness. No matter how tired I was from work, just being with Mark made all the fatigue disappear. It was the same for Mark. Spending time with Sarah is my greatest happiness. I could embrace every cheesy line he said. And a year and a half later. I want you to marry me. It was a straightforward proposal, uncharacteristic of Mark. Of course, my answer was clear. Yes, I'd be happy to. With that, we became husband and wife. But there was one fact about this marriage I didn't know. A week had passed since I moved into the apartment Mark lived in. Out of the blue, Mark said he had something important to discuss and asked me to make time on the weekend. Understood. Then came the promised weekend. Come in. What? Who? Suddenly, Mark called someone in. And the person who entered the living room was a young girl. I'm Emma. Hi. This is my daughter, Emma. She just turned 16. Emma was Mark's daughter, who had just started high school this year. That's the situation. Wait a minute. I didn't know anything about this. I'm sorry. Sorry? Just like that. Mark awkwardly explained why he had hidden the existence of his child. He had mentioned previously that he was married to another woman and had divorced due to various reasons. But this was the first I heard of his child. I wish you had told me sooner. My bad. Mark thought I would refuse to marry him if I knew he had a child, so he didn't tell me. Even so, I wished he had told me while we were dating. The fact he kept this from me was shocking, but even more so was realizing he didn't trust me enough. As I was trying to wrap my head around this sudden revelation, I felt a sharp gaze. Looking up, I met eyes with Emma sitting next to Mark. Is this girl? Her look was as if she saw me as a villain stealing her precious family. Emma's gaze was so cold and sharp, it sent a chill down my spine. Distracted by Emma's gaze, Mark began to talk about the future. I really feel bad for you. But I can't leave Emma alone. You understand, right? Besides, Emma has no problem living with us, and I hope we can build a happy family together, including you. You don't mind, do you? Though it was decided for me, I couldn't possibly leave a 16-year-old girl on her own. I haven't got my thoughts in order yet, but I understand. Let's live together, all three of us. Is that so? Great. Sarah, thank you so much. Isn't that wonderful, Emma? Yeah. Mark was overjoyed, in contrast to Emma, who seemed displeased. I was the only one overwhelmed by a sense of unease about whether we could truly make it work as a trio. Before we knew it, 3 years had passed since we started living together. The anxiety I had felt back then seemed unfounded, as our life together was peaceful. Emma successfully graduated from high school and decided to go to college. Congratulations, Emma. It's going to be tough from here on out. Thank you for everything till now, Dad. I'm really happy to be your daughter. Huh? Did she just ignore me? We'll still see each other. It's not like you're gone for good. You're just leaving the house. You can always come back, so there's no need to speak like that. Thank you. I love you, Dad. At first, I thought she just didn't hear me, but it was clear Emma was deliberately ignoring me. It was a moment when I caught a glimpse of Emma's true nature, which she had never shown before. I realized then that what I thought was a peaceful life had been a lie all along. Years went by, and 7 years later, things had changed somewhat between Mark and me. We used to talk for hours, but now, we only spoke for about an hour a day, and sometimes, we didn't talk at all. One day, Sarah, you've been going out every time you have a day off recently. Where have you been going? Eh? Nowhere in particular. Why do you ask? Don't play dumb. I know everything. Where are you going? Tell me. He had found out. I had been planning something in secret, but of course, he would figure it out. Don't stay silent. Say something. Is it something you can't tell me? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hide it, but I thought I'd tell you when things were more definite. For the past 3 months, on my days off, I had been going to a place about an hour away from our house. There, I found a popular old house cafe that had become famous through social media. And I decided to check it out. The cafe attracted a diverse crowd, from young people to families and elderly folks, serving delicious coffee and stylish dishes with impeccable taste. Before I knew it, I was hooked too. And I had become a regular, frequently engaging in conversations with Bob, the cafe owner. During one of our talks, Bob mentioned an empty house nearby that had been uninhabited for years. There's a place like that? It's a stylish house, similar to this cafe. The couple who lived there had to move due to work, and it's been on the market for a while, but it hasn't sold. The area was mostly populated by older people who didn't favor stylish homes. So, I thought about buying and renovating the house to live in it. Are you serious? Yes, coming to this cafe has made me dream of living in an old house. Considering my age, I thought it would be nice to spend my life in such a house. Then Bob said, "That's a wonderful idea," and offered to introduce me to a contractor he knew who could turn the house into something I'd be happy with. I have a friend who works in construction, so if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce him to you. Asked him to build this shop for me, so I'm sure you'll be able to make a house that I'm satisfied with, you know. I agreed without hesitation. And the renovation work on the empty house began soon after. The construction progressed steadily, and I looked forward to seeing my new home taking shape, visiting every chance I got. That's what's been going on. There's nothing shady about it, and I didn't mean to keep it a secret. I just thought it'd be better to tell you once everything was finished. A new home, huh? Don't worry about the money. I got the house for a bargain, and the renovation costs were lower than expected. Plus, I decided to buy the house, so I'll cover the expenses. Hearing this, Mark showed a relieved expression. I see. I've been wanting to leave this apartment, too. Ideally, as the head of the family, I should be the one building a house. But if Sarah wants to do it, then I guess it's okay. He was being calculative. It was obvious he just didn't want to spend his own money. So, when will it be finished? It will be completed next week, so we can move in right away. And the following week, Mark and I moved into our new home. Old houses are the best. There's something so calming about this atmosphere. What's so good about this? It's outdated, and I can't get to like it. You're crazy to spend money on something like this. Mark's tactless comment irritated me, but I didn't want to feel that way in front of our new home, trying to calm the annoyance. Then, Mark said something surprising. Emma will be living with us from today. What? Mark said, looking towards the road. Following his gaze, I too looked towards the road, and a taxi was approaching, stopping right in front of us. A woman got out. Emma? This place is too far. Emma, whom I hadn't seen since graduating from college, had arrived. What shocked me more was her appearance. Emma's belly was visibly large, clearly indicating her pregnancy. It's been a while, Dad. Long time no see, Emma. Your belly has gotten quite big. I'm finally going to be a grandpa. What are you talking about now? Why did you decide to move to the countryside? I thought I would give birth where Dad is, but this is such a backwater. And what's with this house? Is it that trendy old house style? It's trying too hard and kind of creepy. Emma, whom I hadn't seen for years, suddenly started complaining and being sarcastic. I had never imagined that our new life in the new house would become a life with 3 people again. 3 months into living together, we remodeled a vacant house into an old-style home, focusing on every detail, including furniture and appliances. It was the house of my dreams. It should have been a happy and hopeful life, but reality was different. Everything revolved around Emma. It was natural to be considerate since she was pregnant. But if her mood was even slightly off, she would lash out at me. Hey! You're startling the baby inside. Be quieter. This is why I hate middle-aged women. Just seeing you irritates me. Disappear already. Enduring this became a daily routine. Meanwhile, Emma didn't care about me at all and kept inviting her acquaintances over to make a lot of noise every day. It felt like this was Emma's house. I started to forget why we bought the new house in the first place. This wasn't supposed to happen. Having Emma around made every day stressful, slowly eating away at my spirit. And Mark's presence became another source of stress. Even if Emma insulted me and I felt down, it was all my fault, according to him, always taking Emma's side. Even when I was too sick to do housework, Emma was the priority. Do you expect Emma to do the housework? A housewife who doesn't do housework is worthless. If you can't do it, leave. Mark harshly criticized me while Emma watched with a sneer. By then, I didn't even care anymore. I was nearing a breakdown. One day, something terrible happened. When I returned from work, there were several unfamiliar cars parked in front of the house. Guests. Getting out of the car, I could hear a noisy crowd inside. Wait a minute. With a bad feeling, I hurried into the house. Trying to calm my rush, I opened the entrance and then the living room door. What I saw made me want to cover my eyes. What are you doing? The living room was filled with trash. Moreover, my favorite furniture was dirted and some even broken. Mark and Emma had invited their acquaintances for a house party. Stop! Don't touch that! My shout echoed, but nobody cared. In fact, they all pointed at me and laughed. Suddenly, Emma said something outrageous. I've been thinking, you're just in the way. Actually, there was never a place for you here. She said it bluntly, in front of everyone. Her eyes were cold and sharp, like the first time we met. And that usual sneering face. Emma went further. Not knowing this was my name-signed old house. Despite being my stepchild who came to our house for a maternity homecoming. Your room will be mine. Emma's eyes were serious. Then Mark chimed in. Emma's right. Go back to your parents' home. After enduring so much. This treatment was too much. Amidst the rising excitement around, I was the only one calmly thinking about the future. It's over between us. And now it's your turn to suffer. Meanwhile, the commotion continued until late into the night. But not a single person here cared about my presence. A week has passed since then. It's about time. It was sudden, but I had been preparing for this week by cutting into my own time. I did everything I could by myself to avoid involving others. And today has come. Thank you for everything. We will never meet again. I left the divorce papers on the table, finished some procedures, and left the house. When I arrived at my parents' house, my parents, who were aware of the situation, greeted me. Dad, Mom. The moment I saw their faces, I burst into tears like a child. It was just too much to bear. That night, after taking a shower and returning to my room, there was a call on my mobile phone. Looking at the screen, Mark's name was displayed. Of course, I had no intention of answering. And as soon as the call ended, I set it to block incoming calls. Now I can relax. I don't want to go through that again, especially now that I can finally relax at my parents' house. But I knew I would have to meet them eventually. I needed to finish what I had left undone before then. However, they came to my parents' house sooner than I had anticipated. You, explain what the hell is going on. To do this to us when the baby is about to be born is unthinkable. Such treatment, huh? I'm amazed, in the opposite sense, that they can say such things. I'm surprised you noticed so soon. I thought you were more oblivious, but you're quite sensitive, aren't you? What's that supposed to mean? Are you mocking us? Well, you two don't seem to care about anything around you. So, I thought you might not understand what's happening to yourselves. That's what I'm saying, you're mocking. We know what's happening. If they really understood, they wouldn't be confronting me like this. Claiming to understand, but actually, they don't. It's troublesome, but spending more time on them is a waste. Best to end this quickly. I'm not free either. Whether you understand or not doesn't matter to me now. What did you say? Enough already. I'll explain why you were kicked out of the house. Simply put, the house is in my name. So, if I leave, it means I'm not living there anymore, hence it's sold. Did you get that, explained in a way you can understand? They seemed to understand what I was saying, judging by their faces. But their expressions darkened. Of course. This meant they had nowhere to live now. Of course, they both must be thinking differently. But, this isn't the suffering I intended for you. The real test is yet to come, so be prepared. Sorry to catch you off guard, but what I want to say isn't over yet. What? Do you even understand the situation you're in? What situation are you talking about? What are you saying? They really don't understand. Didn't you see the divorce papers on the table? Or did you actually submit them? Don't joke with me. Who would get a divorce? That's going to be thrown away. I figured. Mark knew the house was in my name. So, he wouldn't agree to a divorce. But I had anticipated this. I thought so I prepared another set. What? I presented the new divorce papers to Mark. This time, I've taken measures so you can't escape. Then I called out to someone in the back room. My parents came out, along with another pair. Dad? And Mom too? No way. I had planned to have Mark's parents present for the discussion. Their presence today was purely coincidental. It's surprising how quickly someone who was so bold can change. Mark, seeing his own parents appear, turned pale. Now you see? You can't escape this time. You'll sign your name in front of everyone. And to avoid it being thrown away again, I'll submit it myself, so don't worry. Mark, with no escape, signed the divorce papers on the spot. All that's left is to submit them, and the divorce will be finalized. But it's not over yet. The biggest problem remains. What's going on? You even involved Grandpa and Grandma. You're doing much worse things. You're taking away our place to live and now divorcing Dad. You're the worst. That's rich coming from you. The worst one is Emma, after all. I feel bad for Mark, looking so dejected next to Emma, but he's going to face even worse from here on. You talk about a place to live, but the house's deed is in my name, so it's my right to do with it as I please. If you didn't want it taken away, you should have bought it back yourself. I don't have that kind of money. That's not true. You could ask the father of the baby in your belly. He seems to do whatever you ask. How do you know about that? Emma's momentum completely halted. The reason is simple. Getting into a relationship without thinking and ending up pregnant. I'm curious about what goes on in Emma's head. Moreover, the man is already married. That's why he couldn't possibly say no to Emma, right? Cheating on his family and even getting another woman pregnant. Wait. This is the first I'm hearing of this. It can't be true, can it? Emma cheating. It's a lie, right? He probably never imagined his daughter, who he has loved dearly, would cheat and even have a child. Unfortunately, it's not a lie. Your precious daughter is committing the lowest act of cheating. Stop it. Don't spout such nonsense. Dad, I haven't cheated. Don't listen to her. Believe me. She dares to say such a thing so calmly. But I have evidence. I took several photos out of an envelope and placed them in front of them. Upon seeing the photos, both were stunned. I think it's clear without saying, but those are photos of Emma's affair. I had a detective agency investigate. Turns out, there's plenty of evidence of her affair. That's impossible! While Emma panics, Mark seemed to realize something, standing dumbfounded. You knew, didn't you? About him often bringing his wife and child to our house. Mark remained still, not moving an inch, while Emma started sweating profusely. Sweating too much, aren't you? Well, it's understandable. You were pretending to be friends, inviting him over, without his wife knowing she's inviting her husband's mistress, who is also pregnant. Stop! Don't say any more! You're truly the worst. I told you to stop. Mark was left speechless by the shock. But it's not over. I need to tell them what their daughter had been planning. By the way, changing the subject, but now that the house is gone, what will you do? What do you mean all of a sudden? What do you mean? Weren't you planning to live with your affair partner in that house? First, you drove me out, and next, you were planning to drive Dad out. Then, once you were alone, the plan was to live there with him, but since I sold the house, that plan's been cancelled, hasn't it? The moment she heard that, Emma unraveled like never before, and Mark, in disbelief, confronted her. Emma, that's a lie, right? You said once we drove Sarah out, it would just be me and you living together, right? That was the plan, wasn't it? Mark faced betrayal from the daughter he doted on. And Emma, having all been exposed, was left utterly speechless. It was the moment their actions came back to haunt them. But it's not over yet. Wait to be shocked until you've heard everything. Once the divorce is finalized, I'll be claiming compensation from you, so don't run away. Even if you try, I've hired a lawyer and am fully prepared. Are you listening? Mark was too preoccupied with Emma to hear me. Well, it doesn't matter. A lawyer will contact you later, so be prepared. That's all from me. So long. After finishing, my in-laws deeply apologized to me. Then they took Emma, who was still in shock, and Mark, who still couldn't grasp the betrayal, and left. However, as soon as the four of them stepped outside, a cry that sounded like a roar and then screams were heard. What was that? Looking outside from the living room, there were Mark and Emma, appearing to be in a frenzy, and their parents trying desperately to restrain them. And around them, a crowd had gathered, attracted by the commotion. Minutes later, police officers arrived, and the two were taken away. After being released by the police, the two returned to their parental home, only to be disowned and kicked out due to this incident. With nowhere to go, they ended up living in an old apartment with the little money they had left. But things weren't so simple. The father of Emma's child broke up with her and, to make matters worse, was sued by his wife, resulting in a hefty compensation claim against Emma. Shortly after, Emma went into labor and was hospitalized for childbirth. Mark ended up being responsible for both Emma's compensation and the one I claimed. Now, Mark works tirelessly every day without a break to make the payments. Their parent-child relationship has become utterly dysfunctional. As for me, although the money from selling the new home was modest, it was enough. Instead of spending it on building another old-style house, I decided to use it for my parents. Are you ready? We should leave soon or we'll miss the fireworks festival. We're heading to the fireworks festival, just the three of us. Staying overnight at a hotel. My parents had always wanted to visit. Despite what happened, seeing how close my parents are makes me think marriage can be beautiful. I might look for a new relationship once things settle down. Next time, I hope to build a happy family.